Tuesday edition here of the Watch Party here on the Watch List. I'm that guy, Jayar Jackson. Don't ever really say my name all that much. I figure you guys know it by now, bro. You've been waiting for 15 minutes for me to jump in. Here I go. Glad you guys are here. The chat room is all warmed up. I suppose there's even a super chat in there. Thank you very much from Joe Wintern 3123. I appreciate you. I appreciate you a lot. I never ask for super chats and all that. I remember it's a thing that folks do sometimes, but I'm not really good at that. But I suppose if there's times when I can glance over and catch a big old orange or blue or turquoise box there, I'll say hey and I'll say what's up. Glad you guys are here, back here on a Tuesday. I feel like the week is moving and motoring on along. News keeps on rolling. As a matter of fact, I spent all day yesterday. All day yesterday, it was actually frustrating even for me. I was like, why am I talking about this war constantly, wall to wall? It's because developments happen over the weekend. This is one of the presidencies where sometimes the biggest developments go down not on traditional weekday news days. So I think sometimes things get buried, and I really wanted to show all the things that we had maybe missed over that weekend. So there was some dedication to that. But since then, because of all the discussions about what's going on with this war, the lack of a real plan, the lack of really reasons why they went in there, what they're doing while they're there, where the objectives are, if they're being successful, whatever that looks like in these objectives. Because sometimes that success may actually be detrimental because, again, this is Donald Trump's administration. But since then, they've been feeling the effect of the negative response to what it is that they're doing, whatever the hell that is. So this morning, I was in the car dropping my kid off at school, and I heard Pete Hegseth's dumbass voice. And man, I was like, he must be trying to, shore up some kind of support or maybe explain what is that they haven't been explaining. He took that opportunity, and I don't think he did all that well.
On day 10 of Operation Epic Fury, we are winning with an overwhelming and unrelenting focus on our objectives, which are the same as the day I gave my first briefing here on Operation Epic Fury. They're straightforward, and we are executing them with ruthless precision. One, destroy their missile stockpiles, their missile launchers, and their defense industrial base, missiles and their ability to make them. Two, destroy their navy. And three, permanently deny Iran nuclear weapons forever. It's a laser-focused, maximum authority mission delivered with overwhelming and unrelenting precision. No hesitation, no half measures. As President Trump declared yesterday, we're crushing the enemy in an overwhelming display of technical skill and military force. We will not relent until the enemy is totally and decisively defeated. But we do so on our timeline and at our choosing.
Pete Hegseth must be feeling a little bit of pressure because, as you could see, he was trying to lay out some kind of actual detailed, thought out idea of what it is that we're doing in Iran. He had three parts to his plan, but the first lie he told was it's the same objective that I told you guys from the beginning. The same objective being apparently destroy missile stockpiles, destroy their navy, and permanently deny them nuclear weapons forever. I mean, I don't know if there's a timeline behind that, which is why he wrapped up by saying, we do it on our own damn time. It's this constant boisterous bloviating about how strong and powerful you are as you attack folks. And then after you attack them, you really have no idea why you were doing it because you were following behind Donald Trump. So that's really been the purpose of this whole thing here, to try and clear the air, despite the fact we heard that they followed Israel into it because they knew Israel was going to bomb them. So therefore, we started bombing them first, despite the fact that they said they're trying to liberate the people of Iran, which apparently they're not doing that either. What they're liberating them to is, oil rain. So I'm not sure if that really made any sense either. So him trying to clear this whole thing up with these three-prong objectives, I don't think is going to help because they should probably still talk about the reasons why they said everything else besides this, which even if it's this, why again? This is what Donald Trump said, before.
Combat operations continue at this time in full force, and they will continue until all of our objectives are achieved. We have very strong objectives. They could have done something 2 weeks ago, but they just couldn't get there.
We've got very strong objectives. Whatever those objectives are, who knows? Who cares? He's Donald Trump. He doesn't give any details, and when he does, they're lies. So last night, he stuck up his face out again because I think they're finally realizing, and not that they're actually, caring so much, but they're realizing we need to say something because everyone else is obviously pointing out how incompetent we are and how we're just blowing things up. And we thought that talking about brute American strength would be enough to get folks on board, but apparently we need some kind of a plan. So this is a little bit more of I guess, their plan, their objectives. We heard the three prongs from Pete Hegseth from this morning, but this was last night, so he had to follow behind, this guy.
But while we're doing all of these things, we're achieving major strides toward completing our military objective. And some people could say they're pretty well complete. We've wiped every single force in Iran out very completely. Most of Iran's naval power has been sunk. It's on the bottom of the sea. It's almost 50 ships. I was just notified it's 51 ships. I didn't know they had that many. Didn't last very long. But
Okay, so this is the strategy here. They're trying to get him and Pete Hegseth to say they had very strong objectives. Those very strong objectives are being, implemented with precision, strength every day. And then now that we're doing that, you see him floating the next step here. They're pretty well complete. All these objectives are pretty well complete. Again, totally and utterly based off of these two guys, which no one really believes anything that they say because they're blatant and outright liars. It's kind of what they do, but it's still confusing. Every time Donald Trump speaks, he doesn't remember the last lie that he told because he's not good at lying. People just let him get by this. So once people are beginning to start asking him questions, he can't keep it straight. But there needs to be that next step. After he can't keep those lies straight, we go to the next step of removing his ass. Well, here he is, asked for those specifics about those pretty well complete objectives that apparently has us leaving soon.
yeah, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. President, you've said the war is, quote, very complete, but your defense secretary says this is just the beginning. So which is it, and how long should Americans be prepared
Well, I think
for
you could
this war
say
to
it
last
both.
for?
It's the beginning. It's the beginning of building a new country. But they have no Navy. They have no Air Force. They have no anti-aircraft equipment. It's all been blown up. They have no radar. They have no telecommunications. And they have no leadership. It's all gone. So, you could look at that statement. We could call it a tremendous success right now as we leave here. I could call it, or we could go further, and we're going to go further. But
Did you hear a clear answer there? Did you hear him say both? It's both the beginning and the end of this conflict. I'm sorry, this war that we've waged against Iran for Donald Trump's ego and whoever else talked him into it, which I'm going to get to one of those major players that talked him into it outside of Benjamin Netanyahu. But apparently it's beginning and it's ending at the same time. But then also we could end it right now and we could also continue it on forever. Bro, which one is it? I feel like he just doesn't know, doesn't want to say, doesn't really understand what is it's happening because folks told him, let's get engaged in this war and you be the figurehead of it and everything's going to be great and wonderful. So let's see how much more he can lean towards this plan, this idea, because questions keep getting asked and he's starting to stress out. He's got bubble guts or something brewing in his stomach, trying to figure out, how am I going to get out of this? Bro, why didn't you guys tell me I'm an idiot? More questions were asked.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Iran, you called it an excursion. You said it would be over soon. Are you thinking this week it will be over?
No,
Are you
but
talking
soon.
about days?
I think soon.
Okay, and with respect
Very
to
soon. Look, everything they have is gone, including their leadership. In fact, there are two levels of leadership, and even actually, as it turns out, more than that. But two levels of leadership are gone. Most people have never even heard about the leaders that they're talking about. So it's obviously been very, very powerful, very effective.
thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, wait a second. Their leadership is all gone. You can stay there forever, or you can be leaving tomorrow. He even mentioned before, I can say we're leaving right now. He doesn't really know. He reveals how much his brain is, dictating what he's saying. He's supposed to be the internal thoughts. It's like Homer Simpson. He was supposed to say, I could say we could leave at any moment. Instead, he told everyone, I could say that. If you're in a military conflict, at least from what I've heard from other folks who've been a part of these types of things, and you don't have enough of a plan where you can literally tell folks what your objectives are, what you're trying to get done. And then even if it's prolonged, which of course every conflict that we get involved with is prolonged, mostly because of the money making part, I bet. But if you can't even detail why you're there, how long you plan on being there, what it is you're looking to take and get accomplished while you're there, and then also whether or not you can stay or go at any point, bro, that's not helping anything. This was supposed to be like a helpful pivot where they're trying to make themselves look better. So Pete Hegseth, again, this was this morning, spoke in the way that he's going to convince people that they're actually the smart ones, the way that JD Vance, who's oddly gone silent, the way that they're going to convince folks is to start lambasting previous presidents. That won't work either.
You see, this is not 2003. This is not endless nation building under those types of quagmires we saw under Bush or Obama. It's not even close. Our generation of soldier will not let that happen again, and nor will this president, who very clearly ran against those kinds of never-ending, nebulously scoped missions. Those days are dead. Instead, we're winning decisively with brutal efficiency, total air dominance, and an unbreakable will to accomplish the president's objectives on our timeline. We stay locked on the target because here at the Department of War, that's our job. You see,
we stay locked on the target because, you know, I'm a TV guy. And I figure if I say the things that are in my teleprompter and on my notes and say it with what I think is conviction, you're going to start believing me. Peter Hegseth doesn't realize how much of a clown everyone can see that he is. But now if you talk about, if this is in 2003, we're not getting any more quagmires under Bush and Obama. Bro, so what are you into? What exactly is it? He can't say, but we're, again, just like the blaming of Biden at any moment, despite all the horrific things that Biden didn't do correctly. But also, if you can just keep claiming that you talk about other presidents, maybe this can get the heat off of your ass. They're trying it from every angle. But referring back to what Donald Trump said as far as we're about to leave, we're on the verge of leaving. Do you think it's really about them leaving, or is it about all the bad news and maybe all the MAGA guys, remember, that were pulling stickers off the back of their trucks at gas stations, being like, I can't believe these assholes aren't really backing us up. Maybe he's feeling the pressure, or maybe he's also seeing what's going on, you know, with the stock market. Either way, I feel like it's not really about, you know, a conflict or a liberation of the Iranian people.
He could be manipulating the markets. I mean, we know oil prices had risen dramatically in the morning American time. Stock markets went down dramatically. On his mere words, those two markets reversed direction. And if there's anything that the president is obsessed about, it's markets, and especially the price of gasoline at the pump.
I think John Bolton and his warmongering ways, he might actually be right here. I mean, especially since Donald Trump came after him, investigated, ransacked his house. And I'm not sure if the charges so far have been sticking when what they came after John Bolton over. But every once in a while, he decides to tell the truth about Donald Trump because, you know, they've parted ways, similar to Marjorie Taylor Greene. But I do think he's right on it. Maybe it has nothing to do with anything with this war or people, considering, you know, he's a psychopath, but actually about trying to make himself look good. Yet again, it's also what Pete Hegseth mentioned before. If we talk about the dead service members that come back, you're looking to make Donald Trump look bad. That's the number one objective. But look what responded.
Whose father and wife were killed by U.S. airstrikes, or allied airstrikes anyway. That all sort of TBD, but for right now, this does seem to indicate at least a rhetorical shift from the president pointing toward something of an end game. We'll watch and we'll wait and we'll see. It's too early to read more than just that little bit into it, but at least that seems to be affecting the markets right now. Frank?
You know, Eamon, it's important to point out this is certainly a developing situation. By the way, we're looking at oil, and it's much more than a by the way, down about 2.5%, trading at about $88.40 per barrel. I want to go back to some of your.
So I think some reports were talking about how oil was up to 110 a barrel and now back down to 88. Simply because this president says, I think we're nearing the end. It's pretty much war may be over very soon. It just really shows how, I guess, reactionary these types of things are. The fact that we're paying real money at gas stations for energy costs, anything else that they decide, you know, that we have to pay these large entities for is strictly based off of what someone may say, not because of something that's done differently. There's still issues with the Strait of Hormuz. There's still issue with shipping problems. There's still issues with fighting and war going on and murder all over the place. All that's still happening. But all it takes is for the dumbass president to say something like, I think the end of this war is going to be coming along soon, or it could be still forever, which is still pretty non-committal. But the response from these markets to try and, smooth things over and make things look decent for the folks who are paying real money based off of his fake declarations is kind of outrageous. We're in this country where we have all this strength and power, but really all it's based off of is whether or not this idiot is going to say something that may help other folks then determine whether or not they're going to keep gouging us. Isn't that weird? I feel like none of people really pay attention to that. But one more thought from John Bolton, though, because there might be a third reason why he's trying to get out of this, or at least say he's trying to get out of this right now.
The third thing, which may be the real explanation, is that he is getting ready to declare total victory. And we know at some point, whatever the situation, when he wants to get out, he's going to get out saying we had total victory. So this may have been a kind of running start to get that ready. I don't think you can emerge from his comments over the course of the day with any clear idea whatever how close we are to this phase of the operation.
Well, the phase of this operation is cover your ass, try and make Donald Trump look good as possible, and say, as Bolton pointed out here, total and complete victory. They've been setting us up for a while. That's why ever since they came in, we've been hiding reports of any kind of, maybe negative effects that both Israel and the United States have taken in this war. But instead, the whole point is to talk about the total obliteration, the unilateral surrender that's going to happen, the blood spilling in the streets, and how we walked out triumphant, spending about $1 billion or so fighting this and then destroying our own country and economy even further. But as long as Donald Trump can just say, yo, victory, then apparently that's all good. That's good enough for everyone else. But I don't think it will be, because like I said, questions are finally being asked of these folks, and they can't figure out the answers. Listen to the question, this last one, to Pete Hegseth, about their plan for what they're going to do once Donald Trump declares total and complete victory, because they haven't thought this far, because they're idiots. Then what happens next, Pete? What happens after he declares total and complete victory? Because I think they forgot there's a country and then there's a people there.
The president has indicated that maybe the operation will wrap up sooner than he thought it was going to. What's the plan once the U.S. stops military action? Will the U.S. play a role in the aftermath, or will they leave Iran to sort it out?
Ultimately, the aftermath is going to be in America's interests, our interests. We won't live under a nuclear blackmail scenario of conventional missiles that can target our people, which is why the objectives have been scoped from the beginning. Missiles, missile production, defense industrial base, Navy, all in service of ensuring they don't have nuclear power projection capabilities. That's what matters to President Trump. That's what matters to the American people. And ultimately, that's why we're so laser focused on ensuring those objectives and those objectives alone are met. Thank you.
The president has.
The question, wait, sorry, Pete. The question was, what are your plans after you guys declare total and complete victory and leave? Are you leaving it to the state that you've bombed it into? And that still promise of the Iranian people are going to be able to dictate their own futures? Is all that stuff going to happen anymore? Did you hear him answer the question, or did you hear him go back to talking about how we're not going to be living under a nuclear powered Iran? Bro, that was your bullshit objective first. We're supposed to talk about what you're doing afterwards to ensure that, because you said forever, to ensure there's no nuclear capabilities forever. The stuff that you made up as if they were about to have some. There's no answer for that question, because the premise of their whole invasion here, it wasn't on the up and up in the first place. And speaking of that, I want to make sure we don't forget about this. I don't want us to forget about this, because as we've jumped into this war and we've decided to kill people like this, we can't forget, even though he's talking about leaving it to whatever, or actually he said nothing about it. After we've gone in, we've killed people, like, children, directly and not by accident. They're still dodging this part. I don't want people to forget. They should still be on the hook for, probably the 6th to 7th war crime that Pete Hegseth has led.
Tie right there. You got a tie on. Yeah.
Thank you. Come back to the BBC. Can you give us an update on what the administration knows, what you know now about the reported strike on a girls' school in southern Iran on Saturday?
All I can say is that we're investigating that. We, of course, never target civilian targets, but we're taking a look and investigating that. Red tie in front.
Just on the basis that with the information you would have, your reconnaissance abilities, ability to gather information, I mean, it's several days on now. So is there any clarity on whose munition this was?
We're investigating it. Thank you.
They're not going to be able to escape this bombing of that elementary school in Iran. They're not going to be able to. I mean, I'm sure they would like to, because as they pointed out, these folks don't matter. These children aren't real humans. And matter of fact, they're beneath us. Therefore, we can kill them, act like it was someone else. You heard the lie that Donald Trump told on the airplane while Pete Hegseth was standing behind him and couldn't even co-sign it there, about how it was Iranian bombs. But considering we've seen these investigations that Pete Hegseth keeps saying that they're having, and those investigations have turned up the fact that we did that shit, they're left with these bumbling answers. Look, Trump can't answer it either.
Footage that shows an American missile strike and a Tomahawk missile likely destroyed that Iranian girls' school. So will the U.S. accept any responsibility?
Well, I
for that
haven't seen
strike?
it. And I will say that the Tomahawk, which is one of the most powerful weapons around, is used by, is sold and used by other countries, you know that. And whether it's Iran, who also has some Tomahawks, I wish they had more, but whether it's Iran or somebody else, the fact that a Tomahawk is very generic. It's sold to other countries, but that's being investigated right now.
It's not being investigated right now. If it was being investigated right now, which he just said, I haven't seen any investigation behind it, he would have seen that the investigations pointed out that that Tomahawk missile that he blatantly and just randomly claimed, it's a very common thing. It's all over the world. Everybody's got one. Did you know that Iran has Tomahawk missiles? You know, those things that the United States creates? Iran's got Tomahawk missiles. Maybe the next question should have been, where did they get those Tomahawk missiles from? To then, I heard there's like precise and precision based missiles that we've got. And then if Iran's got them, they just bombed their own school and also their own bases that were bombed next to it. It's like it doesn't make any sense. So for the folks who are still believing this nonsense, maybe if they listen to Jennifer Griffin over on Fox News, who got into it with Pete Hegseth earlier in this administration's second term, she barked at her. She's telling a little bit too much truth about that lie that Donald Trump just told.
I want to bring in Jen Griffin, our national security correspondent. One of the questions, Jen, in that news conference was about the strike on the girls' school that's next to a base in Iran, and it was a Tomahawk missile. The president saying Tomahawks are used by other countries, but an investigation is ongoing. What do we know about where that stands?
Well, that was a bit surprising to me because basically the U.S. has Tomahawks. Tomahawks have to be fired from either submarines or from warships. The Brits and the Australians have Tomahawks, but they're not part of this conflict. And then you also have the Japanese who are in a testing phase. So it seems highly unlikely that it would be anyone's Tomahawk other than a U.S. Tomahawk that hit that school. And I think the president knows that. He just knows that this is certainly a mistake, a big mistake, and it's being investigated, but he's trying to sort of muddy the waters by talking about the Tomahawks.
Yeah, they were saying that they didn't believe it was theirs, or they believed that Iran misfired something. Are we sure that it was a Tomahawk that hit that school?
There's no evidence that the Iranians fired anything at this school. If you look at the satellite imageries, and there've been a lot of investigations from the air, from these satellite photos showing the impact and showing the likelihood that it was a Tomahawk.
Brett Baer tried his damnedest, didn't he? Brett Baer was really trying. He goes, yeah, you gave me all that blatant, direct information that completely disputes the lies that Donald Trump is telling, but Donald Trump said so, right? Yeah, but he said so, but he doesn't know what he's talking about. In fact, he doesn't realize that everyone can debunk his lies in about 35 seconds, which she did, which others have done as well. There's only certain countries that have Tomahawk missiles. One of them is not Iran. The other one isn't even Israel. So even if they wanted to blame his best friend, who I guess walked him into this war, if you believe one of the 17 different excuses, they couldn't even be blamed for it. People saw images of it, experts on it noticed what it was, and it was targeted and it went directly to this school. But what they can't do is take any accountability for their actions, because it was not a mistake, because those would be the next questions. How is that you made a mistake with the Tomahawk missile to hitting this children's school? I'm sorry, the double tap that hit that children's school. Who knows? I guess we'll just listen to the liars instead. I'll finish this whole little story with this. I've been saying it since these guys came in, probably the first time in the administration. They're liars. They're led by a liar. So since we've adjudicated that they're liars, don't believe what they're saying now, because what they're saying are also lies. They don't know how to communicate any other way, because if they decide to start telling the truth, they then have to be confronted with the previous lies that they've been telling. So they're kind of stuck in this loop. But it's a happy loop for them. They're very comfortable with the lies. I'm also very comfortable if you guys jump over to the stream, like it with me real quick. We're done talking about, the lies of Pete Hegseth, Donald Trump, and their attempts to try and walk their way out of this war that they started and act like it was a glorious success, with all of your money being spent, with energy prices continuing to go up and leading to other issues that apparently, I guess, they care for the first time that people are finally up in arms over this whole thing. It's getting a little bit out of control. But maybe the issue is there's madmen all over the administration, even people who aren't even officially in the administration. One of them is Lindsey Graham. I talked about it yesterday too, but you know what? I didn't really dig deep into just how crazy this guy is. He is obsessed. Listen to Lindsey Graham talk about how jazzed he is on killing people.
And to all the critics of President Trump, do you really believe the Ayatollah wouldn't use a nuclear weapon if he had it? Do you really believe this regime is normal? They're no more normal than Hitler was. So we have a commander-in-chief tonight and President Trump who saved us in literally the nick of time. If we'd waited another year, they would have had 11 nuclear bombs, and they would use them. I've come to understand that there's some people you just can't deal with. If somebody wants to burn your house down, you don't negotiate with them, you stop them. So President Trump has embarked on a great quest to destroy a religious Nazi regime that would destroy us. And to all those who died in this endeavor called Epic Fury, you're protecting America, because I believe with all my heart and soul, if the regime in Iran still stands when this is over, we've made a mistake. To our friends in Israel, God bless you. I'm with you in every way. To all the anti-Semites, to all the isolationists, I don't believe. Forget it. I'm not with you. I'm with Israel. I will be with Israel to our dying day. They're the best ally we could hope for. So we have a commander-in-chief in President Trump, who I think is Ronald Reagan plus, plus, plus.
Lindsey, get up, clean yourself up, bro. He's a little bit messy over here, man. This guy can't stop. Like it's like he rolls right off the tongue with all the praise. He's Ronald Reagan plus. It's not really, that good of a compliment for him. But still, apparently, you have to attack anyone that you deem being your enemy who said they'll burn your house down. Therefore, I'm gonna go to your front door and shoot you in the face. That's Lindsey Graham's that's his foreign policy approach to everything. Kill. Like it's worse than you even thought. He went on like a media tour to talk about how much he hates everything, and those anti-Semites, as well as all these other folks that apparently don't stand with Israel. He's going to be with them till his dying day. Okay.
If President Trump had not done this, they could have had a nuclear capability within months, weeks, not months. And if they had a weapon, they would use it. To all those who don't believe that, you're stupid. You're a fool. And I hate to be so harsh. People got Hitler wrong. Donald Trump is the right man at the right time. To our allies, if you can't join this fight, what fight are you going to join? To Spain. You won't let us use your our air bases in your country to stop a homicidal regime from getting nuclear weapons that terrorize the world. I am encouraging President Donald J. Trump tonight to move all of our bases out of Spain. We have an Article 5 commitment to Spain under NATO, but we shouldn't have air bases in a country that will not let us use those planes to protect the world against a religious Nazi regime.
when you got allies like Spain that Lindsey Graham mentioned there, and others, he's talking about other folks in the region as well, how they're not standing with us in this illegal war that Donald Trump decided to, spot off and start. For some reason, Lindsey Graham thinks that folks who have already determined where they stand will listen to his ass screaming on Hannity's show about how they need to stand with, we got to take our planes and our every equipment out of there. I feel like it wouldn't bother them all that much, considering they're trying to distance themselves from people like you. I mean, like I said, the man was rolling downhill. Yeah, so far we've talked about some allies. We talked specifically about Spain, and also all you fools who don't know, the more children we kill, the better Lindsey Graham feels. Like, it fills him up. But he moved on to Middle Eastern countries as well, because he's disappointed in them too.
As to Lebanon, there is a military leader in charge of the Lebanese army that I don't trust as far as I can throw him. He is willfully ignoring Hezbollah. He's not disarming Hezbollah. There were rockets fired from areas that were supposed to be cleared by the Lebanese army. Let's get somebody in charge of the Lebanese military that will use it. Finally, to my friends in Saudi Arabia, I've been your biggest champion. I think the Crown Prince has taken Saudi Arabia in a completely different direction in a good way. But here's what I want to say to Saudi Arabia tonight. I'm willing to do a mutual defense agreement with your country to give you protection in perpetuity. Under the agreement I've been pushing, and I hope we can continue to talk about, if you're attacked by Iran, we would go to war for you. To Saudi Arabia, our embassy was hit in Riyadh. Do you not have an obligation to join the fight with us? You've yet to do that. So if you do not believe the American embassy being attacked in Riyadh would trigger mutual self-defense, maybe we shouldn't do a treaty with you. To our friends in the United Arab Emirates, you joined the Abraham Accords when nobody else would. You've been a great partner, but you said today publicly at the UN, your country would not be used to join the fight against the Ayatollah's regime. This is so disappointing.
You're right. The fact that we got to listen to Lindsey Graham dictate what he expects from the rest of the world, man. He's listing every country possible. What Lindsey Graham expects from people. Who the fuck is this guy? So, listen, I'm willing to do a mutual defense agreement with you guys. Was that Saudi Arabia? I can't remember which country now he's listed. He's doing a mutual defense agreement with. That's just as a friend I'm talking to you, because you don't want to piss me off, or I just might start dropping to my knees. God, what a weak, sorry son of a bitch this guy is. But there's something that really stuck out in his pitch that he's making to the rest of the world, what he's going to be willing to do, what Lindsey Graham is willing to accept. This guy ran for president back in 2015 and got his ass whooped, got embarrassed all over the stages in every point of this campaign. But I guess he thought he won, and he's been in office ever since 2016 because he's making declarations about what it is that he wants. But listen to what he slipped up and told he's going to have to tell the people of South Carolina, that he wants to go off and fight in the next war. Whatever part of the world that he dictates it should be in.
Up to our allies, step up, get our air bases out of Spain. They're not reliable. Move all those airplanes to a country that would let us use them when we're threatened by a regime like Iran. To our friends in Spain, man, you've lost your way. I don't want to do business with you anymore. I want our air bases out of Spain into a country that will let us use them. To our Arab friends, I've tried to help you construct a new Mideast. You need to up your game here. I can't go to South Carolina and say we're fighting and you won't publicly fight. What you're doing behind the scenes, that has to stop. The double dealing of the Arab world when it comes to this stuff needs to end. I go back to South Carolina. I'm asking them to send their sons and daughters over to the Mideast. What I want you to do in the Mideast, to our friends in Saudi Arabia and other places, step forward and say, this is my fight too. I join America. I'm publicly involved in bringing this regime down. If you don't, you're making a great mistake, and you're going to cut off the ability to have a better relationship with the United States. I say this as a friend. Up to our allies.
Okay. Deep breath, Lindsey. Deep breath. Because he accidentally pointed out, I'm going back home to South Carolina. Everyone, the people of South Carolina of military fighting age, to fight for the Department of War. Lindsey Graham making declarations and demands across the world about agreements and fighting and invading other countries is going back to South Carolina to tell the people of South Carolina, I'm sending your sons and daughters off. In order for me to tell people that, I need you guys to be on board, or else I can't make that selling point. Aren't these conversations supposed to be had behind closed doors, maybe on a phone call or something, about the nefarious plans and actions that you have to send Americans into these fights based off of your weird Chicken Little, the sky is falling fears about everyone around you? There's a brown person next to me. Every time you get afraid, you're sending off someone else to fight the wars to quell your anxiety. Bro, sit down, have like a glass of wine or something, kick your feet up. Main thing is shut the fuck up. I don't understand why this guy is still talking or why anyone is still listening to him. But you know who's listening to him? The president of the United States apparently is listening to him. So right before I'm gonna get to what Trump is now thinking about doing, this might be the origin story.
I mean, I'm not looking for a fair fight. If we get in a fight, I want to win it. I want to win it quick. I'm in Miami. You see this hat? Free Cuba. Stay tuned. The liberation of Cuba is upon us. It's just a matter of time now. You see this hat? Make Iran great. President Trump said the only way to make Iran great is for the people to take over. We're marching through the world. We're cleaning out the bad guys. We're going to have relationships with new people that will make us prosperous and safe. I've never seen anybody like it. This is Ronald Reagan plus. Donald Trump is resetting the world in a way nobody could have dreamed of a year ago. He is the greatest commander-in-chief of all time. Our military is the best of all time. Iran is going down, and Cuba is next.
All right. Well, we'll be watching what's next on Cuba for sure. Got a lot of hats there. The president.
I mean, I'm not.
I can't guarantee it, obviously, but I feel like Maria Bartiromo, after that guy got to screaming about how he wants to invade Cuba next, and he pulled up hats out of his ass, somehow I feel like afterwards she was probably like, "Oh my God, we can't have that guy on anymore. He stresses me out. All he does is scream and yell about invading and killing and attacking and bloodthirst. Shut the fuck up." I'm trying to figure out why, they keep having him on. It doesn't look good. Sean Hannity was quiet for like a solid 3 minutes while this guy went off and went through all of his scribble notes. But like I said, normal people, even the water carriers, the people on these networks for state TV, they're still on board because that's what they're paid to do. When behind the scenes, the guy who's making these decisions, like the one where he's trying to get out of now in Iran and call it a total and complete obliteration of a victory, he listens to Lindsey Graham. We heard what Graham said about Cuba. This is what Trump says about Cuba.
To Cuba, you said that Cuba wants to make a deal.
Yes.
What would the United States get in return for that? And why should Americans trust Marco Rubio to negotiate it?
Well, Marco Rubio is doing a great job. I think he's going to go down as the greatest Secretary of State in history. And it may be a friendly takeover. It may not be a friendly takeover. It wouldn't matter because they're down to, as they say, fumes. They have no energy. They have no money. They're in deep trouble on a humanitarian basis. And we don't want to see that, but they were very, very bad to a lot of people, as you know, and a lot of people living the Cuban American vote, which I got at record levels. Very important. Those people are very important to me. I know what they went through. They went through hell. And a lot of them are friends of mine because I've been fighting this battle with them for a long time. The Castro regime was brutal. So, they're going to make either a deal or we'll do it just as easy anyway.
He's in the middle of trying to run away from this war he started in Iran and blame everyone else for the atrocities that he's caused, and also claiming total and complete victory. It's going to happen in a couple days, maybe 2 weeks. It definitely will happen before his healthcare plan comes out. But at the same time, I'm not sure if it's someone in his ear or, again, if it's the 7 voices that are in his ear. Somehow he's talking about how it may be friendly and it may not be friendly. And he called it a takeover of Cuba because he's found a way to isolate Cuba. And then after those atrocities happen, he's going to call anyone else that's pulled off any atrocities against the Cuban people, I guess, worse than him. It's who this guy is. He's a colonizer. He thinks anyone else is beneath him. That's how he operates. That's why he put Pete Hegseth's white supremacist ass in a position as well. But the pushback, it has to come from the right, I guess. We can call her the right. Megyn Kelly. She's not happy about Lindsey Graham's influence on Donald Trump because apparently it's just Lindsey Graham and not Donald Trump. She says, when did Lindsey Graham become our president? In the past 24 hours, he's threatened Lebanon, Cuba, the Saudis, the wider Arab region. And now she checks her notes. Spain? Yes, Megan. He's threatening more folks because he's right next to Donald Trump, who's right next to Pete Hegseth, who's right next to Stephen Miller, who's also right next to the rest of these oligarchs and people who want to take over the world, the region, the hemisphere that they keep talking about, because they're all Nazis. Here's our next post. She says, let's get real. The problem with Lindsey Graham isn't just that he's a homicidal maniac. It's that Trump likes and is listening to him. And Trump's favorite channel is parading him around like a Hefner bunny in stockings on every show. Ooh. I think she's getting a little bit close to insulting Lindsey Graham on ways that many folks also insult Lindsey Graham. But she did mention how that network is parading him around like a Playboy bunny. Maybe Laura Ingraham got that message too, because she's not happy with him either. And she had fellow ass kisser on the show as well too, Ted Cruz. And she decided to ask him questions that I hope she would ask Lindsey Graham.
I want to ask about what the Wall Street Journal is reporting about your colleague, Senator Lindsey Graham. The Journal is saying that Graham traveled several times to Israel in recent weeks to help make the case on Iran, meeting with members of the country's intelligence agency, spoke with Netanyahu, coaching him on how to lobby President Trump for action. Graham said that Netanyahu showed the president intel that persuaded President Trump to go ahead. Senator, I know you all talk to foreign leaders, and that happens routinely. But speaking to a foreign leader on the precipice of war and seeming to be lobbying or being an intermediary, which this seems to indicate, is that the right way to go?
Well, listen, Lindsey is passionate about defending America, and he is on the road a lot. He's talking to world leaders all over the world. There are times when I agree with Lindsey. There are times when I don't. But when it comes to
what about this? Well, what about this? I mean, this is something of a totally different level, is it not?
Suddenly, Laura Ingraham has, a couple responses to that milquetoast nonsense answer that Ted Cruz likes to give. I mean, sometimes I disagree with him, and sometimes I agree with him. A very simple question. I'm glad she finally asked it. What about the thing I'm asking you about? They don't want to answer any questions. They have no principles. They're moving along and just trying to survive while Donald Trump destroys everything, and they feel like they can preserve their name through all this whole thing. Finally, someone's asking questions. But why is it Laura Ingraham, who's been carrying water for this administration for this long, suddenly has questions about accountability and the normalcy in which Lindsey Graham going behind people's backs to negotiate with Benjamin Netanyahu on how to convince Donald Trump to go and attack Iran? That war that you guys said is great. Which one is it, Laura? Which one is it? Are you against it? Are you for it? Is it Donald Trump's fault? Or is it Lindsey Graham's fault? I feel like they're looking for a scapegoat, because the one thing they can't admit is that it's Donald Trump who wants to do all this stuff. It's him who was asking for approval ratings on his war. It's him who says he's got blood spilling in the streets and he's going to kill all of them, to where the uncles will no longer be able to cry to any other uncles. That's the president who said all that stuff. But Ted Cruz is an easy target.
No, actually, when it comes to the threat Iran poses, Lindsey agrees they pose a major threat to America, and I agree they pose a major threat to America. Look, Lindsey and I disagreed on the Iraq War. He thought the Iraq War was a good idea. I thought the Iraq War was a mistake. I think Iran is fundamentally different because Saddam Hussein was not murdering Americans on the scale and level that Iran has been doing. Saddam Hussein was not funding Hamas and Hezbollah killing Americans. And President Trump acted boldly to take out a regime that had been killing Americans over and over.
But we're not disagreeing on that.
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing with that. Our point is working with Netanyahu so closely to lobby President Trump, acting as an intermediary for a foreign country. Is that appropriate? That was my simple question. I'm not trying to be difficult here, but that's slightly unusual, is it not? I agree with you on the other points.
I don't think it's a fair characterization that Lindsey is an intermediary for Israel. And a lot of the critics say, oh, the war is all about Israel. Understand, it's not about Israel. It is about America. Laura, if the Ayatollah could kill you and me right now, he would. And that's why President Trump acted. And so I get frustrated with all the people who say, oh, this is all for Israel. No, it's not. This is for America. This is Donald Trump being the commander-in-chief of the United States of America and protecting us.
never answered the question about why it is that Lindsey Graham was working as an intermediary between Benjamin Netanyahu trying to convince him of ways to convince Trump to go and attack. When really, it's pretty easy. Just tell Donald Trump you'll be considered the best ever, and he'll do it. Because that's all he cares about. That's all he cares about. And it's probably actually that was probably the deep intel. That was what Lindsey Graham collected and then gave to Benjamin Netanyahu to convince him to go in. But which, by the way, why would Lindsey Graham be trying to get Netanyahu to convince Trump to go into war with Iran when apparently, according to Ted Cruz, that wasn't about Benjamin Netanyahu. It was about the United States of America. What does he have to do with it then? I feel like Laura had a couple more questions that she could have asked him, maybe to lead us down that route a little bit more. But let me end with, as is where I started, one Lindsey Graham. It's a quick point, but I feel like he encapsulates completely where he feels, who he is, and why, as soon as possible, they should get rid of this guy.
God bless Israel. We should move all our stuff to Israel. Thank you.
Wait, what was that? Listen, here's Lindsey Graham again.
God bless Israel. We should move all our stuff to Israel. Thank you.
We should move all our stuff to Israel. God bless Israel. God bless Israel. We should move all of our stuff there. Isn't this like the reverse of when they tell, black and brown folks, anyone else that they consider, un-American, to go off and go back to your country, wherever the hell it is you came from? Now, a United States senator who's been there way too long, apparently his pitch to Americans is we should leave this country and then go off to Israel. Move all of our stuff. What is all of our stuff? Like I said, Lindsey Graham is a psychopath, as Megyn Kelly pointed out. But at the same time, he's appealing to another psychopath and working as an intermediary between a third psychopath. We just got psychopaths running the government. And what they're looking for is death, destruction, murder. And as they're getting it, he gets happier, and he can't really contain himself. He wants more of it. So I feel like we'd have a clear view of the folks that continue to get sanitized, who their points get normalized into a normal American vernacular and thought processes of how we're supposed to do things. These guys are the worst of the worst people. We don't have to follow them. I hope we all know that. Let's wrap it up with one more story. I'm done with the war talk. I'm done with all that stuff. Sorry, but I mean, it's dominating things. Sometimes we need to focus a little bit back at home again, you guys. So as we go through this last story, I'm not sure, maybe I'll go over by a couple minutes, but if you guys decide to take off, first off, tell John I say hey. But also, number two, these stories always end up back up on the page there. Come back and check it out. Like, subscribe, also share all these things, including this stream itself. And if you're new to the party, we party every day at noon. Yeah, I know it's early, but come on, bro. We're partying. Can you really put a time on partying? Shouldn't you enjoy your life? So let's shift gears to back here at home. I decided to look into what the state is of the DHS situation, Border Patrol, ICE agents. How many people have they been attacking recently in the streets? I feel like this whole distraction, which many people are calling it this war, it's a very serious distraction, and it's not only taking our attention away from the Epstein files, which we're going to continue to talk about, but also what's going on here at home, especially when it comes to how these attacks on American citizens have become a norm, and the blame that's always gone to American citizens. This is a report from the Wall Street Journal. They investigated all of these instances, all of these claims of intense attacks on ICE and Border Patrol agents. I thought it was fascinating.
Are federal agents really under attack? First, we looked at the numbers. We analyzed Department of Justice data and found that since Trump took office, immigration agencies have attempted to bring federal assault charges against U.S. citizens far more frequently than they had before, an increase of over 300% from the previous year. So on the one hand, the administration is talking a lot about their agents being assaulted. And on the other, more U.S. citizens are being arrested for assault. But how does the rhetoric match what's really going on?
Wall Street Journal's taking this a little bit of a deeper dive into all these accusations. We heard it so many times over the past year about how all these rabid American citizens are attacking poor, defenseless ICE and Border Patrol agents who are just in the streets, tapping people on the shoulders and asking them politely, would you stop committing crimes? Because that's apparently what they're doing. And American citizens got rabid, blood's coming from their teeth, and they decide to start attacking them, doxing them, running them over with cars. They say that, but I'm going to let them finish up this report with the reality behind these situations.
In the posts, we found 279 people who administration officials alleged had assaulted an immigration officer, and we worked backwards from there. We had to figure out who each of these people were. Sometimes the posts explicitly mentioned a name, but often they were vague, including a location or date or a descriptor like 11 violent rioters. In those instances, we looked at local news stories, arrest reports, and court filings to identify the civilians involved. We spoke with prosecutors and defense attorneys and people who were arrested. We also reviewed court documents and gathered over 200 videos, including body camera footage and bystander videos, showing the alleged assaults. We found some really important trends. First, nearly 2/3 of the 279 people accused on X of attacking federal immigration officers were indeed U.S. citizens. But we found that almost half of those Americans were never charged at all. Of the people who were charged, none had been convicted. And when we reviewed video of these incidents, we found that the footage often undermined the government's claims. Our investigation was focused not just on what the government was doing, but on what they were saying. And when we looked more closely at each of those posts, that narrative that federal agents are under attack quickly fell apart.
Maybe it's just confirmation for what people who, see clearly and recognized our reality already knew. They've been lying from the beginning with this. When it came from Stephen Miller to Kristi Noem to Tom Homan, it was constant, this barrage of how woe is me victims these guys are as they roll through the streets with long rifles pointing them at people. And then they got to killing folks live on camera. They figured they could still push this propaganda because maybe people weren't documenting it. And as more and more people documented it, we saw reality, and public opinion on this was always against them. Well, at least I guess this is a little bit more of a scientific approach to discover just how bad it really was. Of all those American citizens that they charged or claimed were doing this, the first half they charged and nothing happened to them. The other half they didn't even charge. It's almost like it was just to keep people and intimidate them from stopping their illegal actions. It's almost like it was from the top down. It was almost like it was systematic. And where it starts from the top, of course, is the Nazi that's in the White House standing next to Donald Trump, who goes on TV still. I was like, is he still screeching on TV like this? Yes. The answer is yeah, he is.
But, well, I guess I'll just go back full circle and say that in Minnesota right now, the insurrectionists have come out of hiding. They're confronting our officers on the street. They're being arrested. This is a national security priority. More arrests of insurrectionists are being made every day. And each of those arrests that provides an opportunity to learn more about the network from a law enforcement and national security standpoint. But
Stephen Miller has not left the talking point from the very beginning, where he's talking about the terror networks of American citizens who don't want their rights infringed upon. The terror networks of American citizens who walk up to folks with, video with phones out and record them doing illegal things. The terror networks that apparently Stephen Miller claims was always the case. As we saw it from the beginning, just really fast to remind you, this is the same line of thinking that he's still trying to push now, the propaganda that's not working because there's too much information out there. This is how he started everything. This was just last year. This is how he thought things would go down because he yells loud enough.
The Democrat Party does not fight for, care about, or represent American citizens. It is an entity devoted exclusively to the defense of hardened criminals, gangbangers, and illegal alien killers and terrorists. The Democrat Party is not a political party. It is a domestic extremist organization.
Rapists. Yeah. what's wrong with this guy? Like someone needs to like check this guy out or get him checked out, specifically like out of our government. But as he's pushing these talking points, we've hit this roadblock, which I think is helpful to a degree because as we watch this go down, that same Democratic terror, domestic terror party that Stephen Miller is talking about is finally partially standing up. I want to give them some credit, not too much though, because I haven't seen it enough. But Chuck Grassley, Republican, old man Grassley, did point something out. He said, I want to remind you that Democrats have now shut down the Department of Homeland Security for 24 days. I had actually forgot that. The Department of Homeland Security protects Americans from terror attacks and cyber threats and assassinations, all tactics used by Iran. So as you can see, Chuck Grassley stuck his head up out of the sand and decided to point out because of Donald Trump's illegal war and invasion and murder of people in Iran, we should not be concerned about retaliatory attacks on the homeland, which Donald Trump, when he was asked about it, when people were pointing it out, he said, yeah, it could happen. Who cares? Who gives a fuck? But now Chuck Grassley is trying to use that as a catalyst against Democrats who are blocking more funding for DHS to continue their illegal activities in the streets. Blocking funding, which, by the way, they don't even need. They were given all of these tons and tons of billions of dollars of American taxpayer money to continue doing this through the BBB, that stupid ass bill that they passed where it siphoned a bunch of money from folks and gave it to all of Trump's oligarchs. Tim Kaine talked about it.
We're in this fourth week of a partial Homeland Security shutdown. That means people at the Coast Guard, Secret Service, and TSA are not getting paid. But ICE and CBP are still funded. Right. Given that the pressure from Democrats isn't affecting the agencies where Democrats want to see policy change, is this really an effective strategy?
Well, we have said to the Republicans, we've worked out funding for all those agencies other than ICE and CBP. Let's just pass those funding bills. Let's confine the ICE and CBP reform discussion just to those two agencies and fund the others. Thus far, Republicans have blocked those efforts. We want to fund TSA, FEMA, Coast Guard, CISA. We want to fund those agencies, and we have a funding agreement that's already been negotiated between both parties in both houses. So let's do that. And then ICE and CBP, the Republicans gave them money last summer. They're not running out of money. Right. We can continue the reform discussion there.
Does anybody really think that Margaret Brennan, the host there from Face the Nation on CBS, now run by Barry Weiss and this Trump administration, does anybody really think that she didn't realize that those two things are separate? Does anybody really think that she didn't know what Tim Kaine told her? And then when he told her, she went, yeah, sure, I know that. Because those two entities are separate. When it comes to the funding that's being blocked, it's keeping it from FEMA and Coast Guard and whoever else those agencies that she listed off were. The same agencies like FEMA that this Trump administration came into office saying that they're going to defund, that they're saying these states should be on their own, and that they should take this money and funnel it more for anything that Donald Trump wants to funnel it towards. But we're supposed to believe that this Republican Party gives a damn about FEMA. That is, after a bunch of camp girls died in Texas from extreme flooding and there was no help, when North Carolina experienced its issues and they just didn't give a damn, when they've completely handcuffed these organizations and defunded them, we're supposed to think they give a damn. Isn't it weird how we're supposed to like listen to them? Margaret Brennan knew better. But I do want to show you guys the thought process is spreading. Premier Jayapal is one of them. She was never on the wrong side, but I like the way she put it.
Which we have been 150% clear we are not funding DHS, ICE, and CBP, not a penny more, because these are completely lawless agencies. They all have to be dismantled. They are not operating with regard to the rights of people in the United States, whether it's U.S. citizens, legal permanent residents, or people who have been here for a long time and committed absolutely no crime, which
I'm seeing some, like, I think there's an RNC research account or something that's posting that moment from Premier Jayapal saying, these Democrats are serious. They're going to dismantle ICE and DHS. Well, there's this weird thing about ICE and Border Patrol and the way that they're acting. That's something that should be reined in. But they're supposed to be lawless law organizations that are whooping American citizens' asses, killing people, and they're not supposed to do anything about it. I'm glad they seem to be holding their ground. But last clip here. Because the back end of that conversation with Tim Kaine, who surprisingly was saying the right things, talking to Margaret Brennan there on Face the Nation, she even came up with that same excuse that Chuck Grassley came up with. I wonder who's feeding them, these talking points, these questions, because as he just told her, those two things are separate. We can actually fund those other agencies that you say you're concerned about. What we're not going to fund is ICE.
Well, I asked because CBS obtained a Homeland Security critical incident note that cites Iranian religious leaders issuing fatwas calling on Muslims to avenge the supreme leader's death. DHS says that, in the past, these kind of fatwas hadn't really inspired attacks necessarily, but
you got to be worried.
But you got to be worried about it in this moment in time. So, isn't there a good argument to be made to move on the standoff to end it?
I completely agree. Let's fund all these agencies that don't have funds right now, and let's confine the ICE and CBP discussion to what are the reforms necessary.
Why isn't that happening?
Well, we've offered this on the floor, and the Republicans have thus far rejected. They've said you got to fund everything or nothing, and we said we've agreed on all the other agencies. Let's do that. But ICE and CBP need reforms. We've made that very, very plain. And American citizens want there to be reforms. And so that is the focus right now. And they do have enough money because the Republicans provided to them last summer in the reconciliation bill.
Margaret Brennan knew that. she knew that. She had just had the first half of the conversation with literally 2 seconds before that about why this funding isn't going there. But now we need to inject this fear that fatwas are going to be unleashed all over the place. That is, unless ICE gets more money to terrorize American citizens. Come on, bro. I don't think enough people are buying that. Or maybe we're distracted enough and we just hear, oh my God, the fatwas are coming. Okay. Anyways, that's enough. I just wanted to give updates on what it is that's happening here, and potentially, hopefully, people like Tim Kaine, who surprised me in these moments, will hold that line, because Premier Jayapal is also holding that line, and she's blatantly, openly saying they're not going to be funding this anymore. I feel like it should be that way, even though they're still being funded. So you can probably still crack open a few videos, and we'll still see the scenes of destruction, terrorism, and hatred on our streets at the hands of these guys who are still funded. Don't let them fool you into thinking that they're not, because they are. Those funds need to actually be taken away. That should be the next step. Maybe a little bit of action, maybe a little bit of response to, the traitor that's been unleashed on the country. That's it for me, you guys. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Go say hi to John for me if you hung around. I'm glad if you did, but all those stories that we just went over will be up on the page later, as I pointed out. Come back and check those out. But also, importantly, come back tomorrow, Wednesday at noon. If you're new to the party, I'm sure you'll be ingratiated quite soon. We'll see you guys later. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you on a Wednesday. We're already moving downhill.